I know.
I've just started.
Disgusting.
I just started recording. I had recorded earlier on, but it was showed half of a kebab going down Jamie's face. So I thought.
Yeah, apologies.
So for those people who are tuning in, you're tuning in to part one of Porky's Angels on Canada's Boxing Channel. Part two will be on Andy's Cavern. So joining me today is my regular Sunday guest, Jamie, the Porky's Corner alumni, who, as you probably may have heard, is eating a kebab, and
Yeah.
Andy from Andy's Cavern, who I just think I saw pouring some vodka out of one of the many optics behind him. So we were hoped to be joined by Gerry.
There he is.
Is
He's here now. He's there. Is he?
He's there.
is he?
Good lad.
I don't see him. Gerry, are you there?
I am not here, Bob. I'm not here.
Gerry, how are you, man?
I'm all right. How's things?
So we have a Porky's Corner alumnus grouping. Like I said, Porky's Angels. What should we talk about? I thought that one of the things that might be interesting to talk about is to get you guys' opinions on Joyce and Filip Hrgovic. What do you think? Gerry, you're on screen. Why don't you go?
Joyce and Filip Hrgovic. So I appreciate that you corrected me on saying the name of Hrgovic, because I was one of these guys who was saying Hrgovic. It sounds better, but anyway. So my opinion on that fight is, well, first of all, it's a lot better than what we were going to be faced with, which was Dillian Whyte, who I think has no business, being, Joyce has been mixing it at least with, kind of at least the top 10 guys over the last few years. So I don't think Dillian Whyte has any business to get an opportunity at somebody like Joyce, even though Joyce has obviously had a few losses recently. So to me, it's a good matching to have Hrgovic step in. However, I do think I'm not one of the subscribers to Joyce being, completely shot worn. Well, he might be shot worn, but I don't think, I think his personality has a lot to do with how he talks when he's, in interviews and things like this. You got to take into consideration his age. Obviously, he's. Somebody correct me. Is he 40 yet? I thought he was 40, but
I think he's still.
Said he was 30.
I think he's still 39, but he's certainly in his 40th year. He may have clicked over 40 already, but he's right in and around the 40. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, he's at the wrong end of his 30s. Do you know what I mean? And I think Hrgovic, obviously being 32, is going to have that advantage. An interesting thing that I like to refer back to with this particular fight is when they fought each other in the World Boxing Series. And that's a very competitive fight, and Joyce actually gets the decision. But one thing, if you watch that fight, you'll be like, who's this? Because I don't think most people who have observed Joyce's professional career are familiar with how quick. Now, he wasn't super quick, but he's a lot quicker than he was now. But if you watch that fight, you'll see he was a lot faster when he faced Hrgovic. So combine this with a kind of deteriorated, should we say, Joyce, whose chin's been cracked, and then with a much younger opponent who probably still has a lot to prove, if I'm honest. I do actually like Hrgovic, and I think he does have something to bring. But I think Joyce is going to get beaten, probably on a stoppage. I'll say a TKO round 7. I just think Hrgovic is going to be he's going to have too much combinations thrown at Joyce, and I think Joyce being tough, I don't think he's going to be able to withstand that all night. And I could see him not perhaps being knocked out, but stopped because stopped on a TKO basically.
That was my
So,
prediction.
interested to hear what some.
I predicted a late round stoppage in my video. Let's bring in Jamie and ask Jamie, what do you think of Joe Joyce and Filip Hrgovic?
I don't want to be a nodding dog. But first of all, I want to say evening, Gerry. It's nice to make your acquaintance. Probably.
Thanks. So used to chatting with you in the chat, like we've met already.
I know, yeah, I know. This is the thing. It's the first time we've all connected face to face, isn't it? So, yeah, I agree with you there, Gerry. I think I am a subscriber to. I think that the Joe Joyce is sort of, he's machismo and the way he goes forward with his chin in the air and all that. I do think that's affected him, but again, it's a matter open to interpretation and opinion. But I where I do agree 100% is I do believe Hrgovic stops him in the first half of the fight, because that Daniel Dubois fight, he wasn't, whilst he was being beaten, Hrgovic didn't just back down. He was throwing shots, and he was looking okay in parts. And I just think that Joe Joyce at the moment, now his chin's been cracked, he just doesn't. I think he's got a bit of the David Price syndrome about him, and I think his chin can't stand up to that scrutiny. No man's chin should be able to, really. If you're hitting 16 stone and you're putting that much pressure on the chin, no one should really be able to stand up to it. So the fact that Joe Joyce is completely devoid of defence, I don't think that'll be in his favour. And I think Hrgovic is a man he's got a lot to prove, because a lot of people, right-thinking people, would have had Zhang beating him. I had Zhang beating him, and obviously he's lost to Daniel Dubois. He'll probably say that was something to do with his father and the grief that he was suffering. So, but either way, whatever the reason, he'll have something to prove, and he'll go out there, and I think he'll do quite a resounding job on Joe Joyce.
I just looked up Joe Joyce's date of birth. It's September the 19th, 1985. So he's very close to 40. What's that? Like 6 months away.
Yeah.
Andy, who's not from Aberdeen, but from Andy's Cavern. What's your take on Joe Joyce and Hrgovic?
I'm going to be controversial. I think Joe Juggernaut Joyce is going to smash him to bits.
Really? You think so, eh?
Oh.
No, I think Hrgovic isn't fair to get stuck in a tear-up. And Joe Joyce is a big, strong, tough guy who doesn't mind getting stuck in a tear-up. So, and I think Joe Joyce has got a decent punch about him. I think his chin's still half decent. I know Chisora dropped him. He got up no problem from that. And he was on the verge of stopping Chisora, I felt, in that fight. I picked him to beat Chisora. I was wrong on that. Chisora pulled a rabbit out of a hat, as I said at the time, and pulled off the victory. Very, very close fight. It was a rough and tumble fight, wasn't it? But I think I wouldn't write Joe Joyce off. I think Hrgovic is probably going to be the favourite. But does Hrgovic really hit that hard? He hit Dubois with loads of big right hands and didn't seem to deter him. I'm not sure how many knockouts he's had, Hrgovic, but I don't think he's a devastating one. I think he can hit hard enough, but does he hit hard enough to take Joe Joyce straight out? I don't think he hits anything like as hard as Zhang.
I believe he's a volume puncher. I said the other week, Andy. Sorry to cut in there, but
that's all right.
I said the other week. I think he's like a poor man's Vitaly Klitschko, and I just think like the volume's going to overwhelm Joyce, because I think in a war of attrition, he's going to be the quicker of the two men, and I don't think Joe Joyce is going to be able to get off.
Hrgovic's record is 17-1, and he's got 14 KOs, which would suggest that he's got some bang to him. And I hear you, Andy, about Dubois being able to eat Hrgovic right hands like I can eat cookies. But as the three of you know, I'm somewhat skeptical about Mr. Dubois and what's given him the ability to go from being stopped by an Usyk jab to being able to withstand Hrgovic's punches.
Yeah,
It's a brilliant point, Bob.
Superpowers.
Brazilian beef.
Could be
yeah,
snacks.
certainly.
Could I just highlight something that Jamie said, which is a very, very good point as well, and it's something you don't want to do against Filip Hrgovic. Yeah, before Joe Joyce's chin got cracked, you know, he was kind of criticised for his lack of defence. He did kind of defend. His defence was leading with his face, basically. So, you know, that's actually a really good point, and that's where I'm saying maybe not a knockout, as Andy says. He is a big, strong fella, but maybe it's not going to be a knockout. Maybe it's going to be, you know, the referee's just going to be like, you're just eating these. It's going to be like Larry Holmes against Randall Tex Cobb.
Right. Good point.
Could
Maybe
be.
get to the point. Maybe get to the point where he's seen enough, you know, and doesn't want to see him take any more. It could depend on the ref. Yeah, that could be a big factor in the fight.
Yeah, I think it depends what side of the fence the ref sits on, because I do think that refs, you know, they'll come in with their own sort of, not prejudices, that's the wrong word, but their preconceived ideas of what a fighter is, what a fighter's like. Some may still think, like Gerry, that he's got it in the tank in regards to his chin and he can stand up to scrutiny. Others might think, well, you're gone, mate, you're gone, we're going to pull you out. So depends what ref you get on the night, like you're saying.
Does it matter much that it's at the Co-op Arena in Manchester? So, you know, Joe Joyce is a British fighter, and Hrgovic is, of course, the foreigner from Croatia. Do you think it matters that it's in Manchester? Any home cooking?
Not Croatia. Possibly, Bob, yeah.
No, I don't think that matters. It shouldn't do anyway, but
no, it
if
shouldn't.
It comes to something controversial, I think it would be.
You do.
If it comes to something controversial, that's not to say that would happen. I'm just saying.
It's a bit of an odd pairing though. He's not a big personality, is he, Joe Joyce? And I think you're more likely to get home cooking with big personalities and people that are on an upward trajectory. Whereas Joe Joyce, I don't think he is. Like, he's never going to win a world title now, is he?
Who do you think? Who's the A side here? Do you think?
I'm going to say Hrgovic.
I don't think there is an A side personally. I think it's pretty even. Stevens, it's they're both coming off defeats, aren't they? So, and I would say Hrgovic's defeat was probably a bit more devastating than Joe Joyce's, but maybe a slightly higher level, because you've got to rate Dubois higher than Chisora. So it's a muchness for me.
Yeah, what I noticed just on BoxRec is that Joe Joyce is rated 18th in the world and Hrgovic is rated 20 in the world. I found that a little surprising, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
Don't tell me that Dillian White's rated higher than both of them. There'll be some nonsense like that going on. That's
well, no, it wouldn't surprise me, because he's in with Big Frank now, isn't he? He's in with Red Top. So, you know, it's not about skill, is it? It's about who's doing the lobbying.
Yeah.
Chess pieces have been moved.
Yep.
Well, actually, maybe this is a good time, guys, to since we're talking about people rated very highly, to ask the question regarding Derek Chisora, who is the mandatory IBF challenger for Daniel Dubois. So if Dubois does not go ahead and fight Usyk for the undisputed, if Usyk ends up fighting Parker, we could see Derek Chisora and Daniel Dubois. What do you think of, well, it's a two-part question. Derek Chisora being rated number one by the IBF and the potential of Derek Chisora having a world title fight with Daniel Dubois.
I think Jamie. It's quite alarming. Quite alarming. That's the way the rating is. Though this is maybe a wee bit controversial, but ironically, I think Derek Chisora is more deserving of a title shot than Anthony Joshua is. We got the Talk Sport Liquor Brigade, or the fab guys. They're all licking their fab lollies and Talk Sport, or with Joshua's name on it, suggesting he deserves a world title shot after being completely annihilated by Dubois.
Good point.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, I just looked up. Dillian Whyte is rated number 13 in the world, according to BoxRec.
Ow.
So
There
you
you
called
go.
that perfectly.
There's some home cooking.
Our suspicions were right.
So Dillian Whyte has faced some Christian Hammer, who basically took the money and quit in Ireland, and then some other guy who I can't even remember in Gibraltar, and he's now ranked number 13. What was he doing for the 4 years or something before that?
I mean,
Juice him.
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question, because I'm flabbergasted when I looked it up on BoxRec. I'm like, what? You're kidding me. It is. But getting back to Derek Chisora there, Gerry, what do you think about Chisora and, his high rating on the IBF and the potential of fighting Mr. Dubious?
So Andy obviously brings a great point that I didn't even consider in terms of comparing him against Joshua. Yeah, I mean, it's a great point, but I just can't help feeling that, Derek Chisora doesn't deserve anything like that based on his losses. I would love to know where Derek Chisora was in the IBF rankings before he fought Otto Wallin. Answers on a postcard, because how that fight was an IBF eliminator is blowing my mind. So okay, I'll probably go with Andy on this. I understand his point, about in comparison to Anthony Joshua, but do I think Derek Chisora deserves a shot at Daniel Dubois? No, and there's a whole pile of things that we'd need to consider on that, because he's, guy's health is completely at risk here. He's going in against the champion, who is obviously, a very heavy puncher, and Derek Chisora has taken a lot of punishment. The only saving grace you could say is if they do fight each other, it's over in round one.
There's a couple of interesting things you raised there, Gerry. First of all, on the IBF ratings, from 1 through to 15, I do not see the name of the pillow-fisted Otto Wallin. So how he was even to be able to be a dance partner for an eliminator is beyond me. But there's some other decent names that, I think should be given an opportunity ahead of Chisora. There's Frank Sanchez, there's Fabio Wardley, Moses Atama, Jared Anderson. I'm not saying that they're all great names, but Fabio Wardley and Dubois would be a much more interesting fight for me.
They're up and coming, so you're 100% correct. Yeah, and that's interesting. Somebody in an eliminator could fight Chisora, and yet they're nowhere to be seen in the top 15. I just got it on screen myself. Sorry, James, you're going to speak there.
Yeah, sorry, Gerry. Bubba, I'd just like to say as well, you brought up Moses Salma there. Now, we're being spun this Mike Tyson narrative as well, aren't we? Constantly by TalkSport et al. Surely that would be the logical step if you are really serious about breaking Mike Tyson's record. Get him in with Daniel Dubois. It's an easy fight to make, both under the same management. You know what I mean? But I don't necessarily agree that fight is a good fight, because I've said when we've discussed it last week, Bob, I believe it was, once you've got him in that position at Talma, if he wins, you're not going back, are you?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think he could beat Dubois as well. I actually genuinely do. I'll probably get lambasted for this, but I think he's got the skill set.
No, you make a really good point. Once you win the title, then you've got to be fighting serious title contenders, and you won't have had that foundational underpinning built in properly. So, yeah, I would rather see Moses get 5 or 6 or 10 fights under his belt and then have a run at a championship. But yeah, it just seems that this is like a gift for Chisora as a farewell reward or something. But I mean, you're rewarding a journeyman who's lost 30% of his fights, aren't you?
And
Unfortunately, I think if the fight happens, I think he's going to take at least 6 rounds to get Chisora out of there. Chisora's he's going to get a lot because he's so tough. Unfortunately, he's too tough for his own good, and he's going to take some punishment before he actually gets stopped. The only person that stopped Chisora clean is David Hay, and that was way, way, way back. Even Vitaly Klitschko couldn't take him out. And
that's true.
I think it's just going to be a horrible fight to watch because he's already wading through treacle, isn't he? With his footwork,
Tyson Fury was bad enough, wasn't he, Andy? And Tyson Fury can't really punch. There's no place for sentimentality in a profession of violence. Do you know what I mean? It's not a football match where we're farewell testimonial. You're losing a yard of pace. He can end up in a wheelchair, and as we all know, I'm in a wheelchair. It's not great, so
Yeah, at least you've got your faculties about you, James. He's not going to have his faculties about him, is he? He's going to be mushed.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if I'm looking for a second career, I'll teach him how to use it. You know what I mean? But, depends what he wants to do.
Have you got wheelchair proficiency badges you can hand out to him? When
I have, mate. I've got a license for that. Yeah. DWLA.
Give me useful.
He said, Andy, I think Vitaly Klitschko could have ended that fight if he wanted to.
Yeah. I
think after the spitting incident and the slapping and that, I think because the Klitschko's, I don't know if you know this, but they would deliberately keep guys around for a few rounds to give, well, at least this is what I remember them saying, to give fans their money's worth. So who knows? Maybe Vitaly gave Chisora a prolonged beating. Who knows?
A bit like Mike Tyson with Terrell Biggs, possibly.
Yeah. Maybe.
I think the ship sailed on Moses Atumu breaking Mike Tyson's record. I think that's
gone. Yeah. Well, I mean,
before that happened, Bob, I was saying he should go for it. He should go for like Kubrat Pulev or something. But now I think he should take his time. My opinion's changed because he's missed the boat on that. He should take his time and over the next year and just build himself a bit more cautiously, maybe.
I agree with her. Yeah, sorry, Gerry, go on.
No, I'm just saying I agree. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah. Oh, no, I also think as well, I think we're all in agreement, chaps, that the real world heavyweight champion is Alexander Usyk.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's not going to beat Alexander Usyk. Anybody else is a pale imitation. I do believe he can probably beat Dubois because Dubois is too square, too robotic.
Yeah.
But you become world heavyweight champion, you're not actually beating the real champion. So what's the point? Wait until Usyk retires, learn your trade, rack up the wins, and I think he'll be a good champion.
Yeah.
Very good points.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, he could still possibly beat Floyd Patterson's record, and he could beat Herbie Hyde's record. And Herbie Hyde is the youngest British guy to ever win a world championship. So he could still have, he could be like the second youngest if he beats Patterson's record. But I think that, more seasoning, solid foundation, even if he becomes world champion at 25, he could still have a 10-year career as world champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could maybe break Joe Lewis's record, the championship defenses.
25 defenses. Ooh. I'm not seeing many of Joe Lewis's records being broken. I left a snarky comment on Porky's Corner when Jamie and Porky were talking about Joe Lewis. You guys can have a look at that one.
I know.
I was surprised that you didn't jump all over Porky when he talked about Bum of the Month Club and tell him that it was a made up title because he was walking through Contender so easily. But
he was. I mean, I'm too terrified a lot of the time to interrupt Ross because it'd take my head off. But perhaps I should have challenged him.
Yeah, I hear you. Especially if he's had a few Alka-Pops.
Yeah, I know. Bless him. Bless him. It's all good fun.
I never liked the idea of Atoma trying to break Mike Tyson's record, just throwing that out there for what it's worth. I always
No.
thought they should have, great skills, loads of potential. Just take your time and don't drop the ball. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I respect everybody else who did think that was a good thing to pursue.
We also don't know how good he is. I mean, I know he's destroyed Dempsey McCain, who Hrgovic took like 12 rounds to beat. But I would like to see him in with somebody who's really going to give him a fight.
Yeah, he's not been punched yet.
No. Yeah, anyways. Guys, we've hit a 25-minute mark, so maybe this is a good time for us to wrap up part 1 here, and then we reconvene on Andy's Cavern for part 2. How does that sound?
That's very good.
Sounds class.
Okay, well, thanks very much for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe. What you have here today is a PORKY'S Angels inaugural group chat and group feasting as well.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm munching away here. It's very uncouth of me, isn't it? Really. Sorry, everyone.
It's totally fine. I think we're all drinking, and the only thing is, I'm kind of envious. It's been many years since I had a good kebab.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, I'll see you on part 2, chaps.
See you on part 2. Right. Cheers, guys.
See you on the other side.
See you on the other side. Okay, folks, thanks very much for watching. Please don't hesitate to join us on part 2, which is on Andy's Cavern. If you haven't subscribed to Andy's Cavern, please make sure you do. Thanks very much, everybody.